GSX's sponsor is proud to bring you what's new in Lotus Traveler 853 Upgrade Pack 1 and the new high availability and other features.
Welcome everybody. It is another webcast. This is a big one. We should have a bunch more people flying in as we just get started. It's the what's new in Lotus Traveler and the new high availability with the lovely Gabriella Davis and Paul Mooney. I want to thank them very much for joining us from hours ahead. We had to schedule this as best we could, so hopefully everyone will be able to keep up with us as we go along. I want to also thank, so everyone knows, we had a sponsor come in for this one, and that is GSX. GSX was kind enough to sponsor us on this event, and I actually want to talk about them real quick. GSX does a huge amount of monitoring and analyzing and reporting for the Domino environments. They actually make a very specific one for Traveler, and it's a part of their portfolio. And a lot of people said they do nothing with Traveler for monitoring, so I reached out to them to see if they wanted to include a few slides, which they did. I know myself work with it a lot. Here at Connecture we do. And it's a multi-platform, and it's very passive. It sits on the sideline. It's agentless, so you don't install anything on your servers at all. Makes it really easy to monitor everything that's going on in Domino, same time. It does Bez now. It does Microsoft Exchange. It does SharePoint stuff. It does Quicker, but Traveler is a key component here. As you can see, they're going to be doing good technology as well this fall. Models user activity experience. It connects to the server like a user, so there's nothing installed on the server. It uses an ID file that sits on their client side. It actually then is able to connect up and see the tasks that are running and do a whole bunch of other cool things that we'll look at in just a second with the executive dashboard they provide. The best part we like is the reporting as well as the ability to do profiles. So we can get the right information to the right people, meaning we can share to certain departments if they want to see certain settings or servers. We're able to do that with it through the profiles. And the best part that we also like is the automated reporting. So we have monthly reports, weekly reports. Some customers or departments demand daily reports. So we're able to send out enterprise reporting on specific servers or tasks or things like that that occur and get it out to them. What they've done with Traveler is actually enhance a little bit of what you can do. So what you'll see is green lights, which is what you want for everything, and it does a simple color coding you can change. And Paul, you can probably correct me. How many colors are there? Is it any? So like 20 colors?
Yeah, you can pretty much configure it any way you want, and the UI is in the monitor it's quite a bit better in the 10 range than it was in earlier builds. They've come a little bit of for UI they've gone a nicer path for monitor. For analyzer, of course, it's flex based, so it's very pretty and it's good for the manager people.
Right, it has a remote console as well as the web-based interface. It has the client interface that sits there, so you have access from anywhere, which is really nice, as well as a mobile interface. So you're able to actually see the servers as an administrator wherever you are. It's one of the good parts about this. What you can see on the scanner and sync settings, this is where we wanted to get into. It'll actually start looking deep down into your Traveler settings. Looks for devices that are outdated. You can set it for how much of the population. The alert settings, you can turn those on and off depending on your needs. You can set one default global profile, or you can set individual profiles for up or down. Most of the time we want to be notified when it's down, and then a small subset gets notified when it's up. It'll tell you about unsuccessful syncs and thresholds. The best part is every single part of this is configurable. You can go into any of these and create multiple profiles or settings or alert notifications. It can be pagers. It can be email addresses, pretty much anything you want to do across the whole platform. So just keep in mind it's not just Traveler, but it does involve everything else around the Domino, Exchange, SharePoint, everywhere else on there. Overall, is a global view for you, server and user stats, which is really cool for Traveler. You don't have a good UI yet built for the Traveler interface natively in Domino. So what they're going to give you is a really good overview of the status of the devices. Are they online or offline? What versions they're running? While you can get that from some of the databases, it's not a good overall UI to show you the task status, the HTTP status, is the servlet running, how many users are on, and how many devices are on. I know that we've already been deploying this, and we use it as a monitoring solution for us, so we want to make sure you guys knew that it was out there. I have a contact screen, but I want to make sure, Paul, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I have it in deployment on customer sites. The amount of data stored in the currently the Derby database, there is not that much data, but it isn't a nice interface in Lotus Traveler.nsf. The nice thing about this interface is it's quite similar to the one on the Bez. If you use GSX for BlackBerry monitoring, it's a consistent look and feel as there is for Traveler monitoring, and even the overall Domino summary monitor. So they've gone with a consistent model. And to find people and to find devices, it's easier to do it here. And as you can see, you can export all this data straight to CSV. So and you can get your reports on how much stuff's been sent, received, data sent, received. It's a nice interface. It definitely is easier and quicker to use and find stuff in here than I have found in earlier builds with Lotus Traveler.nsf.
Excellent. I appreciate it. And now we're going to get back to you guys. Let me give you their contact screen real quick for them, and make sure you guys know how to reach them. Oh, sorry, there was one more, the time graph. Forgot about it. They actually show you the time graph of access time to Traveler, where it is inside of there, how the server's responding, what the response times are. It'll give you the times along the bottom. This comes really in handy when you need to do reports back to them, as well as see when your peak usage times are or when the server might be experiencing heavy load. That's available to them. And then the web interface alone itself for the trend reports. This is what I was talking about, when you can actually generate reports for departments, yourselves, for everything. You can actually generate trends to see, when your servers were up, when they were down, what percentage of times. And keep in mind the stats you're seeing at the top are a small subset of the stats they have available. Overall, there's a lot of statistics. They pretty much see everything Domino does, and they create a great UI, and you can export it as well. So all these can be exported. This is how you find GSX. We want to thank them very much. They do have in North America as well as international offices. You can find them on Twitter. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them on LinkedIn in their blog. But they also have free, pretty much unlimited use trials of their products. So you can definitely get to their website. Some of you said you want to talk to them directly, which you will. For the rest of you, this is how you find them, and you can go ahead and register and get a free use trial of the product. I think it does, 15 servers, if I'm correct. Is that right?
I think it's 10 full server licenses in this trial. But I'm open to correction on that from the guys. But it's a fully comprehensive, workable trial. They don't limit anything, so you can test
just a time limit is all they limit for you. It's just a time limit. So let me introduce everyone that we have here, and let's get rolling along. Upcoming events first. Late July, we'll have another webcast on Deos installation and config. A lot of people have been asking for it. We moved it around twice. Then, Mr. Mooney, you can touch on the next two with Gab on for UK Lug, but ethical hacking.
Yeah, based on demand, so to speak, based on feedback that we received from the blogs, the ethical hacking for Domino servers workshop that I wrote and presented in London, we're planning to run it again in New York City on August 13, and then the day before MW Lug, August 15, in Pittsburgh, to run on the site. It will be announced formally on the Blue Wave website and on my blog in the next couple of days once we figure out logistics. So pricing, details, and booking will all be up there.
Excellent. And Gab, you want to tell them about UK Lug?
Yes. UK Lug is happening in lovely sunny Cardiff, September 3rd and 4th. Registration is open. Call for abstracts are still open, but we're getting a lot through, so if you have ideas for abstracts, you want to send them through. We've done a different location for the last few UK Lugs, so Cardiff is somewhere new again. And more announce more, and everyone on the team put on a great show.
And is it uklug.info? I don't want to screw that up.
uklug.info, that's right.
uklug.info. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Gab herself while she was there. Gab, you want to introduce yourself real quick to everyone if they don't know you already, surprisingly.
Yeah, my name's Gab Davis. I work for the Turtle Partnership in London. My job is mostly high-level administration, system design, health checks, security checks, running across really a lot of the IBM products. I do a lot of Domino work, but I do a lot of same time and connections work and TDI and less BlackBerry and Traveler. And I speak at conferences when I'm invited, and I've spoken at Lotus Traveler View and Cloud University, places like that. I was co-author of the Same Time Administration Guide for Same Time 852 with Marie Scott and Tom Duff, and I'm currently writing Connections101.net with Paul, which is our introduction for people that are new to connections, new to WebSpin, new to all that technologies. We're trying to do a training site to really introduce you to all those components and how to build your first connections environment.
Nice. Now, this one, and I'm going to apologize in advance for the picture that everyone saw a few minutes ago for Mr. Mooney, but I grabbed an old picture just to have some fun with him a little bit, and he's a little bit mad about that. But go ahead, Paul, introduce yourself to everyone.
Hello, my name is Paul Mooney. I am the person currently plotting revenge on Chris Miller for posting the worst photo of me available online to be used in a webinar. and it's also would like to thank Gab for backing me up and saying how bad of a picture it is. So not affecting my confidence at all just before I start such a large webcast. I work for Blue Wave Technology, an advanced IBM business partner. I've been using Lotus Notes and Domino and the infrastructure around those product sets since R2. I do large-scale deployments, audit reviews, upgrades, downgrades, side grades, what have you. I'm a certified ethical hacker with the EC Council, version 7, which is why we wrote the workshop on ethical hacking, introduction to hacking for Domino admins. I'm Google Apps deployment specialist. We are a Symantec master partner. I'm the creator of the Lotus Traveler Infrastructure Workshop, which was ran all around the world last year with Team Studio. And I'm co-author with Gab Davis on a slightly different website to the previous slide, which is connections101.net.
What did I have on the previous web? What did I do?
You had 1091.net.
Oh, geez. Okay, well, it's 101.net. Gab, we did that live. Okay, go ahead.
So I don't know what Gab is writing with me in 109.net, but it may be better if you don't check. Well, Connections 101 is where I will affiliate myself as opposed to whatever Gab and Chris are up to.
Hold on a minute. Okay. I'm not gonna have it. There you go, everybody. There we go. Okay, now you're on the same website. Sorry. Jeez, I tell you. That doesn't show up in spell checking, unfortunately. All right. Are you done?
I'm only getting started on you, but yes, I'm done.
All right, everybody. Housekeeping real quick. Chris Miller, Connectria. Most of you know we're one of Lotus's largest hosting and remote management providers. We do tons of security checks as well, but we're really moving into more and more of the cloud hosting world for you guys. We've been a cloud provider for the past 10 years, but now we just call it the cloud. Before we were just calling it hosting. So we're a 3-time award winner. We are SAS 70 Type 2, getting our E16. We're EU Safe Harbor certified, and we opened our 4th data center just a short time ago. So if you need info on us, connectory.com, reach out. So housekeeping, and off we go. We talked about GSX and thank them, and here's the agenda list. If you guys have questions, there is a question section on the right that you can click in and send them. I already see a couple questions queuing up, which I will start disseminating between us so we get them answered for you. Otherwise, this is the list we're going to cover, and we're going to get into it because we've got a lot to go and need to get moving. You guys ready? I guess so. You two.
Yeah, absolutely.
Android client is first. Off we go. The new Android client. So they came out with the new release, and should we talk about the release name first so we don't confuse anybody? Can we get that over with?
Oh, Gab, that's all you. I'm going to sit back and.
It's 853, part of Upgrade Pack 1 is the official. Let me read the official statement. It's Lotus Notes Traveler 853 Upgrade Pack 1. It is a full Traveler release, not incremental, for normal Traveler style. Now, you want to go from there, Gab?
I will go from there. So the whole Upgrade Pack 1, the thing to remember is the Upgrade Pack is an upgrade pack. It's the Domino 853 Upgrade Pack, which enables Domino to some of the features that we need for high availability. In the beta install, we don't know what's shipping for production, but in the beta install, the Traveler install is just one installer. And when you run the Traveler installer, it installs the upgrade pack on your Domino Enterprise server if it's not already there, and then installs itself. So it is still one installer in beta, and I don't know if they're going to change that in production, but I wouldn't have thought so. So don't get misled by the term upgrade pack. You don't have two separate things to install or download as far as we know, but that's what they've called it because you do need to upgrade the Domino server to be able to support what Traveler's doing with the Domino server upgrade pack 1.
And the Domino server must be an enterprise server.
The Domino server has to be an enterprise server by license, yes.
Correct. And now DB2 970X is bundled for those that don't already have DB2 or my MS SQL in-house.
Yeah, now the download of DB2 will be 9.7. Traveler won't like that. It wants 9.7.05, so you're going to have to fix pack it when you bring it down.
Of course you will. There'd be no reason it would come down with the the version that you need. As for many of you are aware, the high availability is following the path of connections and same time and everything else that, you know, you do need other parts of IBM software portfolio to make it run. It does support, you know, SQL, but you do need other parts of the portfolio. So you'll be downloading additional code set, including DB2, but you do get a free runtime license. This isn't shared. You can't download this and run other products with it. strictly for Traveler, right?
Absolutely, and as Chris said, you can use SQL if you don't use DB2, but I'll be able to give you the licensing for DB2 to support Traveler if that's the way you want to go.
Yep, and we'll get to that when we get into more about the high availability features, everybody. We'll talk more about that part there. So the new Android client, let's start looking at screenshots. This is, I stole this one from IBM just because it was easy. But the new Android client came out. I like the next one a little bit better, but this is the interface that you're going to see on there. As you can see at the bottom, mail, calendar, lookup, Traveler itself. Are you using it, Paul, the new Android one?
I'm more iOS-y, but I obviously I've been running it in emulations and then on one tablet. It's definitely much better for a tablet interface now.
Well, actually, I have a screenshot of that. Like that? Is that better?
Oh, have you got there? Yeah, that's the man. It's designed for a tablet now, as opposed to stretching out a normal phone screen and making it better.
Nope.
It's you've got a month view as well. So it definitely does add functionality that was sorely lacking in earlier builds.
I think I have a month view. I'm going to skip ahead, everybody. I think I have a month view real quick. No, I don't. I don't have a month view. I thought I did. But he's right. We'll look at those slides again in a second, everybody. But I thought I had a month view. So the new interface was much more well-designed for not only the tablet mode, but just overall. I think it's sleeker. I think it's a little more, it looks a little more Android-ish, if that makes sense to everybody. Go ahead, Gab.
Interestingly, this looks very much, I mean, for those who use it, it looks very much like the Connections mobile UI.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the design, it's a lot cleaner and more consistent design.
Okay, and then we have one question. We have one question already we should ask. Are there plans to alternatively support Android 4 clients to connect via ActiveSync 2? I haven't seen anything on that yet.
Neither have I.
Okay.
I think what you've got to consider is that they use the there's a lot of stuff going under the hood with Lotus Traveler, the next generation clients. They're going to be used like deployment engines. So it's not just like ActiveSync. They're going to be used for other things. So there's additional functionality in not using ActiveSync. Although I would agree that ActiveSync as a client protocol is more efficient and can do things, you know, it is neater and easier. I don't envisage that happening.
All right, and for those asking about DB2 and licensing stuff, like in features, we're going to talk about that during the high availability section. So if you guys hang out with us just for a second, we'll get back into the architecture and high availability. We're going to do a quick run through of some of the other feature set. Keep in mind this isn't just high availability that they released. There's other feature sets, so we're going to have other pieces in there. And for those who are asking when the client will be available, it'll be released with the product, which we were lucky enough to come, a week early, basically. It's going to be June 26th is when the next release will be available with this new client interface you're going to see. Okay, so for everyone asking about the dates, it's going to be June 26th. And that's the official date from IBM. So I'll send that to everybody so everybody sees it. All right, onward through the next piece of the Android client. So this is the new interface for the agenda. Much cleaner color coding, brighter. You can work with everything on the right slide out. I think it's made more for a tablet than anything else, in my part. But I think it's been responsive. I've enjoyed actually testing it. So I think it was better before. I hesitated before with the old Traveler interface on my device. I don't know. For some reason, didn't like it as much. But this one is very sleek and nice. But you will be able to get your hands on it coming up here shortly. This is going to be a bigger section, though. Web-based administration, then we can go through the other features later. Paul, you want to start with web-based?
Yeah, I'll jump in because they really ruined my workshop, because one of the great things I used to say last year is how much I hated the old Lotus Traveler.nsf because it was a notes-based client interface and it was just like circa 1997 design. So what they've done is they've skinned it with X pages. So if you go into Lotus Traveler.nsf through a notes client now, it doesn't like that. It'll pop up and tell you to go to the URL of Lotus Traveler.nsf and you have to do it all through a browser. Now, to me, there's advantages and disadvantages to that. Having the notes client is always very good, but considering the new backend topology, Lotus Traveler.nsf was always just a window into state data held in Derby, and now potentially state data held in SQL or in DB2. So what you have is a nice new skin, a nice new UI for you to go in and actually do your management. If you have high availability deployed and you put some level of an IP load sprayer in between them, in front of your Traveler servers, obviously you would want to redirect to whichever server is up, and the Lotus Traveler.nsf is there. But it's nice to use. It is quick. It's responsive. It's reasonably well designed. It's it's a nice interface, and they've added in all the new functionality in there. It's there's no big scary learning curve. It's a relatively simple database to get around.
It supports a lot of browsers as well. I mean, they've come out of the box supporting Safari and Firefox and Chrome and IE, so they're supporting a lot of browsers across the board for this, unlike some other providers that might only support IE, for instance.
I can hear BlackBerry being mentioned there at that point.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely hear that one entirely.
Okay.
Let's go to the next screen on this one for you. For servers themselves. So, Gab, this was actually yours. Do you want to cover this one?
It is, yeah. So when you install a Traveler server and you enable it for high availability, what you're doing is you're adding it to a pool of servers, and that pool of servers will behave as one object. So what we're seeing here is my server pool. I have two separate Domino servers, both running Traveler, that are part of the same pool. And I'm able to see their availability. I'm able to see how many users I've got in each one. As you can see, not so very many at the moment. And you can see the last heartbeat check. So,
oh, somebody's dialing.
Not me.
Not me.
Not me. All right, sorry about that. Everybody heard that. I heard dialing, but okay, go ahead, Gab. Sorry, but I could hear someone dialing phones. Okay.
Okay, so this is a very simple, I mean, I can't do anything to the servers from this view. This is a monitoring view which shows me my availability and whether the servers are up and how many users, but it's a very useful feature. There's very little configuration to do to get this enabled, to actually create your pool in the first place. So this is nice.
Let's talk about a couple fields that are on here so everybody understands. Besides the Domino name, which everyone knows, and status, the availability index, is that going to be taken directly from the SAI, the availability index of Domino? Do we know?
No.
No.
Well, you can actually tell it. You can remove a Traveler server from the pool. There's console commands that you can type in on the Traveler server to exclude it from the pool so it disappears. So that, at that point, they'll be marked up as unavailable.
Right.
And there's also other status data that Traveler, you can configure Traveler to say when it's in certain, like, green means I'm good, and then there's orange, and then there's red saying unavailable. So predominantly what we've been using for in beta is disabling one server using a tell Traveler available off command on one of the new Traveler servers, and it will flag up here as unavailable, and all pull requests will go to the other servers in the cluster.
Excellent. Now we do have a question about the interface here that kind of fits right where we are. Can help desk admin staff use the web admin UI to approve Traveler requests?
Yes.
Yeah, they can do it from here, yes.
And then they also said, do they need full console access to approve through the browser? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. This database is signed and running actions based on the server ID. So all you need is access to this database over a browser.
Yeah. In the same way you don't currently.
Yeah.
All right. So let's take a look about the client software, since people are asking about it. And so everyone knows they were talking about earlier. The question about 4.0 was asking about like active sync and all the other ones, and we said there, we know no plans to support active sync, but there are things that require OS 4.0 and higher to be on the device for certain features they're going to be deploying too. So we'll get into those in a few minutes though. So who wants to do client software?
I like this.
Okay.
I think myself and Gab this is one of the features that kind of gets lost in the noise of HA that you're going to hear about. But one of the problems that you have when you're upgrading Traveler is that Traveler will push the new client builds down to the devices. But now what you can do is you can attach client builds, and you can assign client builds to one or two people. You don't have to upgrade everyone or let Traveler go off and do its thing and then Traveler to download the latest version. So you can get the build, you can push it out, and then you can push it out to everyone and set it as a default for future use. So when it comes to rollout testing after post-upgrade, there's a lot lower risk on everything going horribly, horribly wrong.
And the really nice thing they've done here is this is going to allow them to roll out upgrades that just upgrade the device software. So it's going to add new device software. This is the Lotus Traveler.nsf database, but if software appears in here, it's then downloaded onto the file system of all servers in the pool. So you don't have to deploy this on every server in the pool. This will take care of every server in the pool to make sure that the actual device software in here is available and served up by HTTP to the clients. The default setting with this is if it's a point upgrade, it will automatically be available to upgrade the client. And if it's a patch like a 8.854 won't automatically update, but 853, 2, 3, and 4 will automatically update. And as you can see, you have all this stuff here about assigning to different people. So one of the things we can do is if you want to discontinue support for a particular client version, you can delete that client level out of this view. All the people that are running that client level will then be directed to whatever the default client level is. So when you feel you're ready and you no longer want to support older clients, you can delete that out of this view. Anyone on the older client will be upgraded to the default version you've got here. I mean, it's very, very nice stuff, very clever.
And it really is focusing itself on a service level deployment now. You know, you don't have to manage Traveler servers independently. You're managing your service pool, and pretty much every feature now is aimed at that method. Not that you have to do it. You can keep it as it is, but it's aimed at if you do decide to go with a service pool in the HA environment.
Yeah, we have someone joking they don't see the Windows 7 client.
Neither do we.
You're right. Neither do we now. Now let's go back a second. Someone was sending us a note about a correction, and you two, I'm trying to get you the question list. I didn't want to change your settings midstream in case something happened, but they said that about the question about the full console access. Well, apparently, documentation I think said no, but apparently there's an IBM PMR that in order for them to do it, they need full. There's a feature request open to address and change in a future release that the help desk would need full console access to do some of the stuff that.
Is it a feature request to have that changed so they do need it?
I will send it to you so you can read it, but I'm just letting you know.
Send it on. I'd be interested in seeing that as well.
Really interesting. Since we're just talking about the client, I want to mention there is a new notes in setting that actually allows you to specify that the Traveler server will only serve one type of client.
Yeah,
which
that is cool.
People ask for a lot. So you're able to actually specify the Traveler server. This server will only service Android clients, for example.
Exactly.
There was ways of doing that in the earlier versions, but they were very messy.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's another one. Here's a good question that asked about right where we are. What is the latest version of Traveler client server that is not HA for a small environment? The Traveler versions are going to be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Traveler version is going to remain the same. You're going to be installing the most recent Traveler you can possibly install. The difference is whether you turn on the high availability. And everyone's kind of skipping to the high availability, so we'll finish this up.
Yeah, the install is just a Traveler install. Once it's installed, you have a command line you run to turn on high availability. But if you never run that command line, you never turn it on.
Well, let's get to that part in just a second here. Let's finish up this. This is the last part of the device settings for web-based administration.
Oh, the only reason I added this in is there's also some new Android features in there. For example, you can prohibit copy to clipboard now on an Android, and you can.
And that's a 4.0 feature, though, right, Paul? Wait, that's a 4.0 feature. Okay.
Yeah.
I want everybody to be clear because there's a lot of 3X devices and 2X devices. There's certain features that require Android 4.0. Okay, and that's something we should probably preface on some of these. So I got the list, I think, here. Disable local password storage. Prohibit copy to clipboard, prohibit export of attachments, and prohibit camera is all 4.0.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think camera's 4.0.
That's what I said, prohibit camera. But now,
okay.
password type option replacing alphanumeric is 3.0 and higher, which is a separate setting in here. Jeez. So everyone, yeah, you got 4.0 settings that are involved. There's 3.0 settings that are involved. You have to see the documentation, remember, but a lot of the ones you're seeing on the screen here were all 4.0. I appreciate the one about the camera, which I know a lot of companies, bigger ones, have asked about, but we don't need to get into the politics side, but you should point out that these are users' possible either corporate or personal devices. So prohibiting the camera could add an interesting twist, right? When you're trying to balance personal, personal devices that bring your own device stuff as well as corporate stuff in there.
It'll make you very popular.
Right. Any improvements for iOS devices? We were asked though while we're here at device stuff.
No, because it's typically wait for iOS 6 and to see what's coming along in the beta strain. But no, this isn't, because they're not in control of anything on client on iOS. They're it's an IBM version of ActiveSync. There's not that much in there towards iOS.
I mean, they can only leverage what the iOS operating system exposes to them. and they're doing that now. So they're always going to be just one small step behind.
Excellent. And they want to know, is this what we're seeing after the upgrade, or just in case of HA?
After the upgrade.
After the upgrade, because the HA stuff, remember, is just a command line. You're just, setting a flag to turn stuff on for other features.
Yeah, the key difference would be that server's view.
Right. And then, is Journal and Notebook Sync included yet?
Depends on the device.
Depends on the device. If the question is Apple, the answer is no. Apple don't have a journal. You may tell from the tone of mine and Gab's voice how many times we're asked that question. No, there isn't. Now, what I have done is I've been pushing other mobile development companies to actually make Journal available through their tool sets, so that people can actually get journals replicating locally to iOS devices. But no, since Apple don't build their own, it ain't there.
Right. One of the questions sent in was, who knew people love the journal so much?
Yeah, not me, but apparently they do.
Apparently the users love it. And remember, there were some partners before that used to do some of the sync. Common Time used to sync things like journals and everything too. So that was quite interesting to see them do. Server commands. I actually had you paste this in here, Paul, just so we had it. So everyone understood there's a lot more commands they're going to be giving you. And is there anything you guys want to highlight on this, Gab or Paul?
Yeah, there's a couple I really like. One is bind. You're able to bind a user to a specific server. So in the high availability model, you wouldn't necessarily know which server a user was on, because the server pool handles that and the user could be on any one of the servers. But if you actively need to have a user directed to a specific server for any reason, you have that bind feature to do that. And the other one is what Paul mentioned, which is the available off. So you can temporarily take a server out of the pool, and when it's out of the pool, it will carry on servicing sync requests for devices that have already connected, but it won't allow any new devices to connect and sync with it. And that's very cool, because you can do that on the fly.
Yep. No, I like that there's a lot more of these commands they've built in. And someone asked this question, and this is a good time to put it in there. They want to know if the mobile device number will ever be collected. So you can see in the Traveler server statistics and client settings, things like that. Will the mobile device number ever show up, like in a BES server?
I
actually don't know.
It's not in the current notes. It's not in the current release. I don't know if it's on the board to be done, but it's not in the current one, to answer their question directly.
The other thing I wanted to mention.
Yeah, I didn't see it anywhere, even in requests. I did a search real quick, and I couldn't even find it in requests. So I'm going to say no for now for the guy that's asking.
The other thing that I think is really cool that they've done here is, because each server is in a pool in high availability, if you issue a server command about a user, you don't have to know which server that user is on. Whichever server you issue the command on, if it's in the high availability pool with other servers, that command will be activated on all those servers. So that's really good. You don't have to kind of chase around trying to work out which server a user is currently connected to and then issue command just on that server.
Okay, so now here's some info. We got one person. It wasn't in any of the forum. You see, they asked on a call, so it wasn't logged anywhere. Someone said they asked the question on the phone number, about the phone number on a beta call. We're pseudo-cleared to say this, I guess, because of the stuff we got lifted for today. But they said there wasn't an API to pull the phone number from the devices. So there's no way for them to get the phone number from the devices due to there's no API to get that information, they're saying. But there's the answer, still no. Before we move to HA, is there any improvements with calendaring and scheduling you guys want to note?
Nothing in particular, unless you kind of include the Android stuff with CNS.
Yeah.
Like basically the calendar views and stuff like that.
Yeah, the view, the new month view, there's a UI improvement, but not actually feature improvement, let's say, in terms of functionality.
No, well, again, Android is not my bag on the client side, so not that I know of, but I would quite happily be corrected on that. I am aware of the new client look and feel. Like there's things like notes link handling and stuff like that, but that's not really, CNS.
Right. Now I'm up, Gab, I'm going to make you the test victim. I'm going to upgrade you real quick, and you just got upgraded. You should be able to see all the questions now too that are flowing in. That way I didn't lose anybody or drop anybody. So.
Okay. Just checking. Ha! Questions.
All right, Paul, I'll do yours the same. I didn't want to make two changes at once and then blow everybody up. Ready, Paul? There goes yours. Give it a second. You'll see the questions as well. All right, because there's a bunch more coming in. Now we can all handle them at once. I didn't know what status I didn't know what status to put on there. So high availability. We're right on time for that. This is going to take a majority of time. A lot of people are starting to ask questions about this. Let's back up for those that joined late. You will be installing one code set that came in now. The code set will include the availability for it. It is called the Lotus Traveler 853 Upgrade Pack 1. It is a full Traveler release, not incremental. HA is turned off by default. Then it must be turned on and configured for use. And the Upgrade Pack 1 must be installed on a Domino enterprise server, not messaging. So taking care of all that part, because in this diagram that Ed had on his blog, it says mail servers, but we should classify them, and they should be enterprise type installs. Off we go. Where do you guys want to start?
It's quite good. We've deployed and installed since beta, myself and Gab. If anybody on the call is a BES administrator, some of it will look quite familiar to you. When you do the install, it works off the Derby database as it currently does with Traveler. What you have to do then is go through a process of connecting the Traveler server and then additional servers to a backend relational storage point, which can be DB2, which will be included and free as part of your license agreement, or they've also included an MS SQL server. And the main reason for that probably is that a lot of BES administrators will be quite used to that already if they have high availability, so they may have SQL deployments and they want to leverage them again for actually storing the Traveler data. So after you've, sorry, Chris, go on.
No, I was going to ask you a question about this, so go ahead. So you said after, I was going to talk about if we can start with everybody. So I kind of want to go left to right so they know, this is a question that came up, and I know it's going to come up, is where am I, as we talk about it, where am I putting certain parts of this architecture? Like where's the balancer going to be, where's the pool, you know what I mean?
Okay, there's no balancer in Traveler. Like, all these requests are HTTP based in one form or another. So if you had a Traveler service pool, you could use, like if we called it, say, traveler.bluewavegroup.eu, and people are hitting that server, it can be a pool behind that, and you can use things like round-robin DNS or a load balancer or an edge server of some description to point the requests to any of the Traveler servers or round-robin between any of them. So you have to put something in the front. Gab, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Gab, and also architecturally, people are going to start asking about DMZs versus internal, where these servers have to sit.
Yeah, so the infrastructure here doesn't change drastically from what we've currently got in Traveler. The piece that changes is instead of having the data store on the Traveler server, we have it on the enterprise server, whether that's DB2 or SQL. So the same rule applies with any of your Traveler deployment. If you were deploying your Traveler server in its own domain in a DMZ, then you might still do that, but you might have the database server, DB2 or SQL, on your internal network with a port from the Traveler server coming in. It really depends how you deploy Traveler now and what's appropriate. The key thing I want to highlight is the communication between the Traveler servers in the pool and from the Traveler server to the data store by default is unencrypted. So if you want to have that encrypted, you have to use IQman to generate a key and copy that onto the system. It's not Domino SSL key, it's a separate key that you can generate, and then you can turn on encryption. So if you're not going to have your Traveler servers co-located on a secure network, then that's something you're going to need to do, and that's not default. That's something you have to enable. But other than that, the core design here doesn't change very much. We have the Traveler piece in the middle is very similar. What changes is the Derby database is no longer on the Traveler server. We now have a separate data store, and to take advantage of the fact that you've got multiple servers pretending to be one, you obviously need a load balancer in front of that, or round-robin DNS if you want to cheap it out. So people are directed to more than one server. But the key design decisions about whether you put the Traveler server in the DMZ, whether it has its own domain, those remain the same.
There's one additional feature that may influence that though, and it's nothing to do with HA. It's the nodes link handling. That the clients themselves can handle nodes links a lot better. Obviously, it's not psychic. It can't click on links to servers it cannot point to or connect to. So if your Traveler servers are in the DMZ and you're clicking on a link based to a home mail server which is on your LAN, the Traveler server can't hit it, it will fail. If you have a VPN solution and a device is coming onto the VPN or on the network, they're able to hit the server. So it is a reason, you know, if node links are a big deal to you, it is a reason to actually VPN the whole lot and get yourself on the network.
Now, one of the questions, or actually two of the questions we can address at once. The first one is there a limit to the number of servers that we can put in the pool or in the backend? I don't think so. I haven't seen a limit yet. No.
Backend,
you're not doing domino clustering, so you don't have the domino clustering in there.
Correct. That's why they should understand. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People don't understand how that works, you know, together. So in the pool itself, the Traveler service pool, is there a limit there first?
No, because they're just separate servers. Like there is, for example, as Gab said, you're not using clustering. Lotus Traveler.nsf does not cluster. It doesn't need to cluster replicate between those sites. So they're just domino servers. Now, the reality of it is there is a depreciating return. If you have 16 servers there, it becomes less and less efficient for it to handle all the requests, and you'll have to start worrying about your round-robin DNS or your edge server managing lots of different boxes. But no, theoretically, as far as I know, there's no limit on the number of boxes. I haven't gone past 3.
Okay. And then people are they're going to ask about, I know they're going to, and this is something we had earlier, as they're talking about scalability. You know, is there a number of scalability yet? They haven't released any published numbers yet.
I also want to make the point on multiple servers. It is not, because of the way Traveler works, we don't entirely have time for on this call, but go check out Paul's and my session from Lotus Sphere this year on Traveler. You don't want to, it's not a great idea just creating a giant pool and putting everybody in it. That's not an efficient way for the Traveler servers to behave. So in case people were thinking of that, well, we'll just centralize everything with one giant pool and everybody in that pool. There are key things that can be bottlenecks in Traveler traffic, and one of them are the number of servers that the Traveler server has to connect to for mail, and where those servers are. So this isn't a kind of a centralize everybody in one giant pool kind of solution. Would you agree, Paul?
Yeah.
Feel free to say no.
No, I'm not disagreeing. It's one of those rare occasions me and you are in complete agreement. You don't want to over-architect or engineer this either. It really depends what sort of scale you're hitting. We have 5, 6, even 10,000 user sites using Traveler, and when it comes to performance statistics of the new HA environment, I don't think there's anything official released yet.
No, their current statement was that the server should be, the current concern would be any latency to the mail database, because the Traveler adds a network requirement for, there's Traveler to the DB server, there's Traveler to Traveler, and DB to DB server if you're doing configs. So they're saying, co-locating, reduce latency as best you can, keeping the servers together. They don't have any numbers saying, what if you want to do 10,000 devices, what would you need in terms of servers? They haven't released anything like that yet.
There was a white paper in the previous or the current build of Traveler which gave you some numbers, so they'll wait to update that. Yep. So the standard recommendations hasn't changed. Like if you have a mail server in a set of mail servers in Boston, for example, try and put your Traveler server there. Put them near each other.
Right, and then, right, exactly. And then someone asked about, is there admin server in the pool? There's no admin server. You can use any server in the pool as your where you want to do your changes and work.
There's no master. There is no boss on these boxes.
That's the way it should be, right?
I've just been typing that as an answer. I've got all caught up answering questions.
Yeah, there's no master server. All right, so let's walk through the rest of the architecture here, and then I'll scroll back to the questions too. Someone asked about, they asked about a service pool in different geographic locations. You can create multiple pools where people connect to, but I wouldn't architecturally yet spread servers across geographic locations from the same pool.
Well, that's a reflection on the previous version. So if in the previous version you were geographically challenged, shall we say, that you have to put your Traveler servers in specific regions, can I set a pool in that region? Yes, you could. So you could put both Traveler servers in different geographic regions in the same pool, connecting to different back-end servers, but you would have to seriously consider latency, and you would probably want to bind users to specific servers, so I don't think you get a lot of return on that. You would be better off and more efficient creating separate pools in each region. Because if your primary goal is high availability, you know, it may cost you more servers to actually do that to get the return on it, which is high availability in itself.
Yeah, it's the same question again. There are lots of things that happen in Traveler, but it needs to connect to the mail servers and it needs to be able to send the traffic to the devices. And that's why kind of these regional pools are a much better idea. But, you know, if you run MPLS everywhere, maybe not.
Go nuts.
So let's go to the next step in it, so we make sure we cover these two. The actual backend databases. There's been many questions, and Gab's been answering some into the chat area, to the questionnaire if people want to look there. But which is the best choice? What about Oracle? Can I cluster? You know, people are asking about those.
Okay, you can't do Oracle. My totally unbiased, I don't sell either one opinion is, if you know DB2, then put in DB2. If you know SQL, put in SQL. If you don't know either, I would choose DB2 because your license for IBM is free, because DB2 is easy to install, because IBM will support it. In terms of high availability, SQL clustering and DB2 high availability, both of those will work with Traveler, but those are features of SQL and DB2. You would need to buy DB2 licensing to be able to have high availability, I believe, for DB2, and you would need to buy SQL licensing in order to have clustering for SQL. But if you had the licensing and enabled DB2 high availability or SQL clustering, then Traveler will be perfectly happy about that, because that's at a sub-level as far as Traveler is concerned. It doesn't see that.
Right. And just to echo what Gab says there, if I had no SQL servers or DB2 servers, I would also pick DB2 because at least if something goes wrong, you have a single channel for support.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're get to that part of how does HA work? How does this actually work when we put all this together?
Okay, well, if we forget the load balancer in the front,
right? So
because that's a kind of a separate feature around Robin DNS. The Traveler Service Pool, which used to have a Derby database on each server, that doesn't exist anymore. What you have to do is create databases in DB2 at the back end, and then you turn on high availability on each Traveler server, which what it does is it migrates the data out of the Derby database and puts it into the new backend database on the right-hand side. So what happens then is there's nothing really on the Traveler servers. It's just a service. It's just channeling the messages in and out. All your state data, all your device data, user data, settings data is stored in the backend. So in the case that one of those servers fails, the front-end box, the load balancer around Robin DNS, will just point to other servers, and the other servers are still able to communicate with the back-end data and still able to channel and deal with all requests. Very, very similar to anyone who's dealt with BlackBerry BES servers in a highly available mode. So forget that the Traveler servers basically become windows. They just become gateways into the back end of the data. Now they are doing the polling of the target servers, as in the target mail servers, but if one of them goes down, every Traveler server in the pool knows exactly what its combined job is. So even if you lose 2 of those 3 Traveler servers in that pool, the final server will continue to poll around all the target mail servers and process mails.
Excellent. Now, people are asking 2 things. One, do I install DB2 or SQL on the same server, separate server? Where do I put that?
You could put it on the same server, or we'd recommend you put it on a separate one.
Right.
And IBM recommend, and I would recommend 64-bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't throttle yourself by trying to deploy 32-bit, because if you're putting in a pool, don't forget there's an awful lot of activity happening on those databases. All that state activity, everything that's being sent to and from the devices is being written out to that database. So you need a good connection between the Traveler server where the threads are and the data store itself. You need good disk on the data store. You don't want to be limited for memory. So I would go with the 64-bit deployment. And since someone's going to ask, I'd be perfectly happy with virtualization. I deploy virtual all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Just as a follow-on to both of those things as well, if you don't know how to install DB2, go to connections101.net, where we have the install screen by screen, step by step to how to install it for connections. And it will be enough to get it started in actually installing DB2. Just follow the module on installing DB2. and it will take you through the whole thing. And then all you have to do is follow the PDF file that comes with the Traveler install for how to tell the Traveler server to connect to the backend of DB2.
Right. If everyone noticed on the screen, a little side note they would point out is they actually also changed the URL. It's no longer your hostname /servlet/traveler. It's now just /traveler. Just a little side note.
Yes, but it's backward compatible as well.
It's backward compatible. Yeah, of course, it'll still work. But they actually made now, as you can see under next to Mary there, you can now go to state /traveler. It's not something that you have to do extra. People have asked more than once, and I'm curious about what you and Gab think, and I have my own opinion. But to keep Lotus Traveler in a separate domain, we have more than one question on this.
I was just having an answer to that. It really does depend on you. I mean, I often do it because if I have it in a separate domain, I'm able to upgrade the version of Domino without first having to upgrade the admin server of my domain. So that kind of leads to the question of, well, how often do you update your admin server in your existing domain? And would it be an issue if you had to update the admin server? Now, bear in mind, I'm talking about a separate domain, not a separate organization. I personally don't create a separate organization and cross-certify. I don't do all of that. I do often deploy a separate domain, so we have an empty Domino directory, and I do that certainly if we're in the DMZ. One thing to bear in mind with Traveler, when you're doing type head addressing, it's using the address lookup on the mail servers by default. It isn't using address lookup on the Traveler server. So you don't have to have all of your directories on the Traveler server and it's in a different domain.
What's the benefit then of doing it that way?
Well, the benefit of doing it that way is you can upgrade Domino for the Traveler servers, and because with Traveler, the upgrades are coming much, much faster than they're coming, but they have to. You know, they're trying to keep up with the mobile operating system developments. As fast as the mobile operating systems come out with new features, they come out with new ways for Traveler to leverage those features, and that's not going to go away. You're always going to need to and want to upgrade Traveler faster than the rest of your Domino environment, because the day a new device comes out, someone will buy it and want to use it for Traveler.
So that has happened many times.
It has happened, and it'll happen while iOS 6 comes out. So that's a roadblock in your environment. If in your environment people say, I've got this new device, I need Traveler, and you say, okay, well, the new version of Traveler means I have to upgrade Domino, and I can't upgrade Domino until we upgrade our admin server in the domain, and upgrading the admin server in the domain is a 3-month process that we have to plan. If that's the situation you're in, then don't put your Traveler server in that domain. Put your Traveler server in its own domain, and then it doesn't need to be held back by the version of Domino you're running for everything else. That's the single biggest advantage. The other thing, which is a bit of a security advantage, is that Traveler server only needs records for people who use Traveler. So you don't need to have your entire company's directory on the Traveler server, for instance. You only need the people that are using the Traveler server. So if that's an issue for you, if you're putting the server in the DMZ, I mean, it's Domino, so, you know, it's still secure, but if you're concerned about that and you want to keep down the amount of data that you're putting on the Traveler server in the DMZ, then that's another option as well. You can put it in its own domain, and you can limit how much data you have there. I mean, having said that, as I finish that sentence, I suppose you could also use selective replication.
Oh, God, no.
No, don't say that. Pretty soon, everyone's going to have a device anyway. At the rate this is going, you know, this is just getting to it. It's going to be ridiculous. What else on AHA do we want to cover? So we make sure we have a few minutes for the extra stuff that we haven't covered yet that they forgot about. Anything else major? Oh, the port. I added as a note because people were asking about firewall changes and rules. The old port 8642.
No longer really in use.
Right, no longer at all. When using HA, the new clients need to be at least 852. They do push over HTTP, HTTPS. That was used for what, Windows Mobile and Nokia prior to 852. So you can actually disable that port now. You can set the value to 0 and disable that port.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a SyncML port, so it's no longer really required.
Yep, the update install doesn't automatically disable it though, just for those that have it. So, anything else on high availability you guys want to cover or talk about? Anything else in the questions before we move on? Oh wait, go ahead.
There are some tell HADR commands available as well in the console. You can get status on the console by typing in some status commands in the Traveler console. Nothing that you can't really get by actually going to Lotus Traveler NSF in the browser, but you can find out some cooling information. Another thing to think about down the road although not here yet, is that because all this data is leaving Derby and going into SQL or DB2, it's in a big boy relational database system now, so you can start querying that data.
Oh,
so
you know what? Someone asked about Derby, Paul. You want to explain what Derby was? Someone did ask specifically what's the word Derby they were hearing all the time.
Very simply.
Oh, sorry.
Do you want to take that, Gab?
Sorry, Gab.
No, go ahead. I was just saying I was typing for ages, but I don't think anyone can see the answers.
No, you're answering them all, Gab. You're sending them to all, but I think that one was...
All right, no, shut up. No, go ahead, Paul.
You're sending them to all, but I think that one was like one of those quick, people would miss it. It was, Go ahead.
Okay, Derby itself is Derby's a relational database system. It's a free one. It's one that comes every Traveler server that you have installed right now. People think the Lotus Traveler.nsf is where all user information is stored. For the most part, it's not. It's actually stored in a Derby database, which is under the Domino. It's under the NTS directory on the Domino server. And that is a relational store which is holding and being queried by the Domino Traveler server all the time. So you have that, you use it whether you know about it or not. And that database can get quite big. I've seen that hit like 5 to 10 gigabytes in size because if you start hitting large deployment sites. So you are already working with a relational backend. You just don't know you are. The process that we're following now to make it highly available is putting it onto a relational backend that you probably have heard of, or you probably know, which will be Microsoft SQL Server or IBM DB2. One of the side benefits of that, apart from HA and all the other features, is that that database table construct is now available, and all the data is in there. And if you wanted to build custom reports, the old manual handmade way, you can do that and create the data. Obviously there are tools that do all that work for you, like the GSX monitoring tool, and once they'll bring out a HA availability monitoring as well, and all the data that will come along available in the back end will be queryable by systems like that.
Gab, since you did a great long answer, do you know what fields are in the Derby database?
No. I wanted to mention, since we're talking about data stores, one thing I wanted to mention, when you do the upgrade from an existing Traveler install that runs the Derby data and you enable high availability, what the Traveler task will do is it will move that data out of the Lotus Traveler.nsf into your data store, your DB2 or SQL store. Your Traveler NSF will then have no information in it. It moves that data out from the Derby database, so it migrates your data out to the enterprise data store. The catch to that, which we were talking about earlier, or Paul, Chris and I were talking about earlier, is once you move to enterprise data store, there are currently no tools to move you back. So if you choose DB2 and then you decide you want SQL, currently there are no tools to move you from DB2 to SQL. And if you choose DB2 and then decide you don't want high availability, well, you could put a DB2 server on your Traveler server and move the database over, but you can't move back to a Derby database from DB2. So when you make that decision to go high availability, don't make it on a whim. Because once you turn it on, it's moved the data. It's on.
Yeah, you're correct. Is there any other straight ones on there before we go to the random stuff? I don't see any other HA questions. Yeah. Oh, wait, here's one. What would be the best configuration to use for a single site plus a redundancy site?
Well, I suppose if you consider it, if you wanted, now by redundancy is a very vague term, it can be taken in many ways. So if you wanted high availability with a redundant site, you would put one Traveler in your production site, another Traveler server in your redundancy site, make them a Traveler service pool, then have the backend data, which is like a DB2 server or a Microsoft SQL server stored somewhere, be it on a SAN locally in your production site probably, and then if you wish you can make them highly available, but as we've made a point of saying, like highly available Microsoft SQL servers mean you need to have multiple Microsoft SQL servers, which you may have for BlackBerry anyway, and enabling high availability on DB2 doesn't come with your license agreement currently with Traveler, but you can stick your DB2 database on resilient hardware.
Excellent. You guys ready for the random stuff?
Go random.
We're going random.
Let's have a random slide.
We have a random slide for random stuff, but a lot of questions and everything else, so we have random stuff. So we had a lot of random side notes as well as a bunch of random questions. Someone asked about high availability and MDM to deploy traveler profiles.
It shouldn't make any difference at all, because currently what you have, if you have an MDM tool, for example AirWatch or Mobile Iron or any of those other tool environments, you typically just deploy the profile if we're talking iOS, and the profile will be pointing to your Traveler server or through your load balancer. That's not going to change. There's just not going to be any real difference there, because everything that we're changing is at the back. So the most MDM tools will have no clue what's going on that far back.
Right, and we talked about the numbers already, scalability. They haven't released anything that's been published, but we talked about that. Does anyone know, is there a specific version of Lotus Mobile Connect to support the high availability configuration?
There is a reason I didn't answer that question. No, I don't know.
Well, I know we can say we don't know. I just want to make sure he knows we saw it. So, you know.
I don't remember anything in the forums about that. So, no.
We can investigate. We're not sure. I looked and I did a search while we were talking, and Gab, you and I both. What about groups in iOS? I don't even have one. I don't play with iOS. I play with Android. Does anybody know about iOS groups?
I haven't seen anything on the HA that they're going to be supporting it. And I think if they were suddenly doing it, we would have heard about it. But I wouldn't. I haven't asked. I haven't heard anything. I assume because I haven't heard anything, it's not there.
Okay.
I assume it's not there due to an iOS limitation.
Oh, okay. This was in our back-end notes, but I want to make sure everyone understands the difference between HA and normal Traveler. If I use the web interface, where do the settings get stored inside Lotus Traveler.nsf, or are they in the SQL database? So
in a regular?
I was going to read the answer that you guy put, but if you're configured to use Enterprise DB, like DB2 or SQL, changes are made to the enterprise database only. There's no data stored in Lotus Traveler.nsf in HA mode. If you're in standalone mode, non-HA, then you're using Lotus Traveler.nsf.
Yeah, and the Derby database, so as normal. So the browser interface, you have the browser interface regardless after you upgrade to this build. It's whether you choose to enable HA or not is up to yourselves.
Yeah,
correct.
And you know, in case it's not coming over, the enablement of HA is ridiculously easy.
Yep.
But in no way am I underselling this to tell you it's very easy. It is your Traveler install. It is creating a blank database on your DB2 or SQL store and then running a Traveler command to enable it. I mean, there's lots of things you can turn on and performance tuning things you can do, but the simple install and enabling is a very, very nice piece of development. And I think it's certainly something that people shouldn't feel intimidated about doing.
Right. Paul, this is something you brought up earlier that we wanted to talk about, was better link handling.
Yeah, there's note links have been the bane of your life if you've been a Traveler administrator. Like, what happens when people embed notes links? So with the HA build, there's a lot of improvements in just notes links itself and how they handle. They'll turn into URL hotspots, which point to whatever the HTTP version is of the web address that the link came from. So if I email a link to Gab, and as long as Gab's device can connect to that over HTTP, she'll be able to hit it. Which ties back to what an earlier recommendation I said, is that if you're using a Traveler server in the proxy and all the other servers are behind in the LAN, this probably won't fix your problem. You would need to go with some level of a VPN solution so that the devices think that they're on the LAN, and then you just have much better link handling in general.
Correct. Now let's talk about also, I like this one, is scheduled sync settings.
Yeah, for the majority of the devices, what you can do now is you can set prime sync settings, or prime time settings, and out of office setting time. So you can say force the device to sync every 15 minutes during a normal working hours, and you can specify what the working hours are. And you can also configure to say synchronize less frequently outside of normal working hours. And as an administrator, you can define that and push that out to the devices. So why did they give you that option? Battery life. Yep. You know, it's basically going to improve battery life, which, in all fairness, all smart devices need as much help as they can get.
Oh, definitely. Anything on filter limits from either of you? I have that in the notes, but that's the one thing I didn't have any clue what I wrote down. All right,
As far as I don't remember any additional filter limits on it, so I'm so
something
used to looking. I'm so used to looking to the beta build. I'm actually forgetting what was in the build before the beta build.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that too, as well. We talked about the connection URI. There is some. There were some more notes any settings that came along.
Actually, that's a very good point. Note, if you are a previous Traveler administrator, you would have known that the notes ini for Traveler was ntsconfig.xml.
Yep.
Now it's not. ntsconfig parameters would be moved into notes ini.
Right.
So notes ini will have those settings there.
Oh, and I
So,
found my
yeah.
filter limits.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. It just hit me. It was stupid. It was a new administrative setting that you can enforce maximum filter windows for all users now. Previously it was in the notes ini. Now you can use.
Sure. Yeah, you could do that in earlier builds with the ini file parameters. Yeah.
Right. It's mail, past events, future events, and notes, but now it's part of your administrative settings.
And that's a server-side setting. It overrides everything else. So it's quite good for sync performance. And it's like a global setting option if you want to push it out.
And
Another thing is, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
There's send mail options, which was something people have been asking for a long time. You can define now as an administrator, if sent mail from the device, if you send a mail from the device, does it go into your sent mail in notes?
Yeah.
And you can choose, do users choose for that to happen? Do you choose that it is enabled always, or you can say don't ever enable it? And
Like
you can
I
also
said,
say no attachments.
this is where we started thinking of random things. That's why you thought of one right when I did. Another one in the admin UI, you can now lock individual settings on the device, so they can't change them.
Oh,
Yeah, you can. So it really was only available by Domino policies, but now locking a setting prevents the user from modifying it on their device. So that's now built in as well.
I have a question I should know an answer to, but I'm going to throw it out there. The load balancer, the edge server component load balancer, that's a free license with some of the IBM products, like connections. I don't believe the license entitlement is there for Traveler, but it would be a good entitlement if it was there for Traveler, so it had a load balancer with it as well. If I'm wrong,
I'm gonna have to phone a friend. I do not. I think it would be a great idea, but I don't think it's in it.
I don't think it's in it there. I'm mentioning I think it would be a really good idea if it was.
Oh, another one, application password. Require an application password that causes the Android device to prompt for their HTTP password in Domino if they haven't used the Traveler app in a certain amount of time.
Can I be the first to add in there is the next question you will get asked is, can you do that in iOS? And the answer is no.
Now, Gab, you're probably seeing this. There are a slew of questions flying in, and we have approximately 6 minutes. So let's run them
I'm
down.
going as fast as I can. Should I be quick and answer them verbally?
Yes.
Okay, someone asked if there are any changes to thread configuration, i.e. the number of device syncs. We no longer really do the tweaking of the number of threads because that's all done dynamically now, and has been since, is it 8521? Paul, did they change it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 8521. So we really don't mess with the number of threads assigned to certain things because Traveler now is smart enough to dynamically change the threads it needs. What's a good prime resource? If you actually install Traveler, there is a very good, on the web UI top right, there's a help button and it takes you to an extremely good support page for Traveler with lots of documentation. But the Traveler install comes with a PDF on how to work with it, and that's very good as well. But also, I highly recommend for someone who wants a good resource, if you have access to it, Paul's and my Lotus Traveler presentations. Show and tell Traveler, which is like, how many? Like 240 pages on how Traveler works, and all of that, everything in that still applies to what's coming with high availability.
Absolutely. If you're a beginner, the show and tell decks that Gab and I put together will just take you through it from not having looked at Traveler before to installing it now. I think it's fair to say that there will be probably a potential submission for show and tell for HA as well.
Oh yeah.
But at the moment, it will be a if you're new to Traveler, I'm a bit biased. If I'm new to something, I much prefer to show and tell decks to the PDFs or anything like that.
Someone's asking, you have to buy Traveler to get the help files, so what is free? Traveler is not something you buy. Traveler comes with your Domino Enterprise licensing. There's no additional cost. There isn't even any additional cost to have Traveler High Availability. You have to have a Domino Enterprise license. So Traveler is still free as a product with your Domino license.
And there's some wiki documentation that's out there as well, where they put some of the documentation for Traveler. You don't have to actually, some of it's out there on the web right now. You can go read it for free.
Yeah, I'll say if you click on the help in the admin, it takes you to a great page, and that's an IBM resource page, and there's loads there. Someone is asking, once you're being serviced by a particular Traveler server, how long does that connection last? And the answer is, once you connect to a Traveler server and that server basically is generating device threads sending you updates, you're going to maintain that connection. But once you've got those updates from that session, then you don't maintain a permanent connection to that server. Next time you connect, you might be directed to a different server.
Right. And in the HA, any Traveler server in the pool can service you.
Yeah.
They should keep that in mind, is that you can, when you're connecting each time, you may be hitting a different Traveler server in the pool through the HA. It never, there's no, and then unless we talk about, who mentioned it, Paul, I think you did, or you can specify a server, or Gab, maybe you've done it, to always service you. Yeah, you can bind them.
Yeah.
But the point is that randomly in the HA, you can go to any server and it won't make a difference. What else do we have in there real quick? We're getting some back-end stuff about PMRs and things. We'll talk to those.
I'm just going to paste into the chat the URL for the Traveler support page for IBM. All right.
And someone's asking about that, so the chat will have the URL for the documentation. So that's done. Okay. So Gab sent that. And then there was another one I just saw up here. Oh, here we go. Currently, when the sync process is kicked off, it does it for all users, or a plan when the sync process only when there's mail waiting for the user. We've had issues when mail sync has been interrupted due to the server crash and it slows down recovery process. Good question. So when it kicks off, it tries to process everybody instead of just looking at the people or the ones that have new mail waiting.
Well, no. What it does... Sorry, Paul, you take this.
No, Gab, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay.
What the Traveler server does is it's going to probe any mail server for users that it has. So it has a list of users. It knows who the mail servers are for those users. It queries the mail servers and says, give me a list of databases that have changed since the last time I talked to you.
Yeah.
And the server, the mail server, will give the Traveler server all of the databases that have changed. The Traveler server will then filter out from those only the ones for users that have Traveler, and then it will then query those databases and get changes. But you can't just have it when they have new mail, because they might have stuff that they want to send to you. So you need to keep that heartbeat going between the two devices. You can't just have the devices only talk to when mail comes into your server.
Server check times are...
Yeah.
Sorry, Gab, go on.
No, go ahead.
Just you've hit the nail on the head there. Like the Traveler server will check one mail server at a time.
Yep.
At the maximum, sorry, at its minimum, it will check the same server every 3 seconds, but it'll iterate through each server. It will then pass the task down to worker threads, and they will push any new messages to the device. I'm just reading the question. If the mail sync has been interrupted due to a server crash and slows the recovery process, if the server is crashed and it's coming back up, it will be systematic and it will do a check of everything. So if there's mail waiting for the user, it's really not how it operates. It has to check to sync data for every mail file since the last time it came along. So I don't know of any PMR or anything open that's actually got to address that at the moment.
And the thing is, if your mail server crashes, if it's in a cluster, Traveler is cluster aware. So if your mail server disappears offline, Traveler will fail over to the cluster mate. But if you just have one mail server, then turn on transaction logging so it comes back quickly.
Right. Well, we're at the end, everybody. I know there's a few more. We can answer these and put them in there. Then I can save off the chat and I can put the chat transcripts up as well. We're at the end of the time. Anything else? Tell everybody where to find you too, besides connections101.net.
You'll find me on pmooney.net or at bluewavegroup.eu or pmooneynet on Twitter.
Gab.
Oh, yes. You can find me GabTurtle on Twitter, GabrielleTurtlePartnership.com on email, blog.turtleweb.com on the internet, and Gabriella Davis, one word, on Skype.
All right. Mine is I Do Notes on absolutely everything. Easy enough there. You guys can find me at idonotes.com. You can find me on the I Do Notes. This will be published. It was recorded as usual. There's not a lot of slides, as you saw, but we will publish the recording as well as the 8 slides that are there for the deck. We'll put the link in that Gab put for the documentation that was available for those that just want some, to find the quick documentation. For those that send in the PMR information, things like that, we'll try to get that in the chat transcripts. Is there anything else you guys want to do? We're getting lots of thank yous and stuff. Anything else you guys want to add?
Nope. Thank you for having us.
Oh, and we are asked to include the old picture of Paul in the reposting. That just came into the question and answers. Everybody, that was another webcast. This will be on YouTube. I'll talk to you guys offline because I'm going to close it down. Thanks, everybody, for attending, and we will talk to you in just a few weeks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.